Hi friends, let's be honest. Are you grumpy before your morning cup of coffee? But have you heard?
Coffee is killing you.
Coffee keeps me alive.
Thank you very much. I'm getting a different doctor.
So what really happens when you drink your coffee in the morning? Is it really going to protect you against heart disease, cancer, liver disease, and incurable dementia? Or is it going to mess up your sleep, raise your cholesterol, and give you heart palpitations? The truth is, coffee could do all of that, depending on when you drink it, how you drink it, and what kind of coffee you are drinking. So in this video, let me help you understand how to find, make, and drink coffee to maximize its benefits and minimize its risks. Sure, coffee can be a longevity food, and 3 out of every 4 people in America drink coffee. Yet America is not a longevity country. How come? Maybe it's because half the population is drinking the wrong kind of coffee, the kind that has little to no benefit. So how do you make coffee? I have here a coffee maker. It's very simple. It has a stainless steel coffee filter. Did you know that just by using this stainless steel coffee filter and not my paper filter, it doesn't remove diterpenes like cafestol and colwiol, which raises LDL cholesterol. And those are linked to possible increased risk of cancer and dementia at high levels. That means when you drink multiple cups. So it's better to drink filtered coffee through a paper filter. Now, I had bought a French press decades ago just to make tiramisu when I was in medical school. Yes, I made tiramisu, and I made like 6 tiramisus in 1 month to relax and bring to parties. I don't do that anymore. Now, if you're going to eat tiramisu, the little amount of coffee that's in it is not going to be a longevity food to make up for all the junk that's in your tiramisu. But tiramisu with coffee is a little bit healthier than tiramisu without coffee. But if you have diterpenes in your coffee, well, they are not water soluble, and they actually slip through metal filters like this, and they stay suspended in your coffee water even though you put it through a filter. This paper filter will trap diterpenes, but allow the water soluble healthy antioxidants to pass through this paper filter so that it gets into your coffee water. Now, unfiltered coffees like French press and espresso, they contain diterpenes that will raise your cholesterol. And no, this isn't a significant amount of cholesterol raising. We're talking about like 10 milligrams per deciliter. But collecting cholesterol is like collecting money when you're broke. Remember Benjamin Franklin? What did he say? A cholesterol saved is a cholesterol earned. And if you earn cholesterol, you basically block your arteries and you block your blood flow. Not good. By the way, are you high tech? Do you have a coffee machine? You'll be surprised at what's in your machine besides the coffee grounds. We'll talk about that later. Now, I know some of you just don't like to use paper coffee filters, kind of a waste of the environment, but I bet you're afraid of the chemicals in the paper like dioxins, which are toxic chemical byproducts of chlorine bleached coffee paper filters. This is not chlorine bleached paper, but if you did have one, it's probably nothing that you need to worry about because there's so little dioxins that it's really not going to make up the allowable amount of dioxins that you get in a day as recommended by the EPA. So this would make up about 14% of the total amount of dioxin exposure that is considered safe by the EPA. This is like a drop in the bucket compared to the amount of dioxins that you're eating from your meats, from your ocean fish and seafood, and even your dairy. So if you are worried about dioxins, you really need to think about your meat, your ocean, seafood, and your dairy. But if your diet is heavy in dairy, and if you're putting it in your coffee, then you probably need to reconsider that because it's actually inhibiting the good, healthy antioxidants that you want to get out of this longevity drink. And if you did want to save money instead of wasting paper and get totally chlorine free, maybe you don't want to destroy trees and you want a metal paper filter, or maybe you have a ceramic paper filter.
This is a ceramic coffee filter from Japan, and today we're going to test it out. It's a zero waste filter that feels kind of like a sandpaper rock.
Well, guess what? These things, they don't filter diterpenes. So you're just might as well drink like unfiltered coffee. I really have to admit this is great for the environment, but the fact is coffee paper filters have holes that are so tiny. They're 10 micrometers in size, so they catch the diterpenes when you put it as a filter. But the ceramic and metal coffee filters have larger pores, so they don't catch the diterpenes. And remember, the diterpenes are fat-based molecules that will be floating on the top of your coffee if you don't have a paper coffee filter. It floats with your oil. So the other thing that you could do would be to get a fat separator cup and just drink from the bottom layers so that you don't have to get the diterpenes from the top layer. But that's a lot of work, and most of the time people are in a hurry, right, to get their coffee fix in the morning. So recently my husband, he bought a coffee machine for his office, and apparently the old one broke, and it's one of those plastic ones with the capsules, those little pods, right? So if you're gonna drink from plastics, then I'm sure you're concerned about BPA, bisphenol phthalates, chemicals that can leach into your coffee if you're using paper cups or lined with plastic. And unfortunately, even if you don't drink from a plastic cup or a paper cup, that plastic pod will leach out some plastic, very little. But your tap water actually has plastic. So that if you really want to be plastic free, or at least, to minimize your plastic, then you should filter your water before you even start making coffee. Isn't that a pretty depressing thought that we are just surrounded by plastic? So start with a good water filter. And chances are, if you live in the United States, you're a coffee drinker, and unknowingly, like I mentioned, adding these to your coffee, that negates the longevity benefits. So I mentioned dairy. This includes cream, light cream, half and half, or there's a little protein in it called casein that prevents your body from absorbing the beneficial antioxidants like chlorogenic acid that can help increase your telomere length, protect your DNA to slow down premature aging, to extend your life, to hit longevity. Now, casein is kind of as sticky as tape. So when you eat it, it sticks to all the polyphenols that you want to absorb. And if you want the benefits of coffee, then you can't drink it with casein. It's best to drink it with soy milk or to just drink it black. And honestly, many people would benefit from drinking coffee. Let's start with people with hepatitis C infections. Hepatitis C is a liver virus that stays with you for life unless you get treatment. And now we have very good treatments that could cure people of hepatitis C viruses. Now, when you get hepatitis C, even though it infects and lives in your liver, it can actually cause inflammation that is far away from your liver, even in your legs and feet. But in your liver, it can cause you to have fatty liver, which can also cause the liver to scar and get fibrotic and turn cirrhotic, which then elevates your risk of getting liver cancer. This is all not good. So it's super important that you get tested for hepatitis C virus, a very simple blood test. And when they find that positive, then they'll refer you, or they may even know how to treat hepatitis C themselves. They'll send other tests like genotypes to figure out exactly what type of hepatitis C virus you have, and then they can design a regimen that would work best for you. But while you're waiting for test results, you can drink coffee because you'll probably drink it anyway, but you just want to drink it properly to reduce your DNA damage and increase the clearance of the virus. And hopefully that will slow down the liver scarring. Coffee's benefit appears to be in the brain too. So those who drank coffee actually had a lower risk of an incurable brain disease called Parkinson's. And I'm sure you've heard of Michael J. Fox. He has Parkinson's. Parkinson's patients also appeared to get a temporary improvement in movement symptoms within 3 weeks of drinking some coffee. And this is really crazy. One of the largest ever prospective studies on coffee found that people who drank 6 or more cups of coffee a day had a 10 to 50% lower mortality rate than the top 10 ways that people pass in America. That includes heart disease, strokes, injuries, and accidents. But if you look at the data more closely, this benefit was for people 56 and older. And for those who were younger than 56, drinking more than 6 cups of coffee a day actually increased their risk of passing away. Another study from the UK observed that nearly 500,000 people, they literally found that if they drank 3 cups of caffeinated or decaffeinated coffee a day, it actually lowered their risk of cardiovascular mortality by 17%, and it lowered their risk of stroke by 21%. However, instant coffee didn't show a benefit. And this is where you need to know your bean. The origin of your beans, the species, the roasting actually matters. In general, there are 2 kinds of coffee beans. Robusta beans have more caffeine, less antioxidants, it tastes bitter. While Arabica beans, they're grown at higher altitudes near the equator like Ethiopia and Kenya. They have more polyphenol due to the environmental stressors of growth. So Arabica coffee also usually involves fermentation. And this is called the wet method of processing, which occurs prior to roasting. So they remove the skin and the pulp of the coffee cherries, and then they dry the beans and allow the microorganisms to ferment the bean. So it's no wonder that coffee is a longevity food, because it is the seed of a cherry. So this process reduces some of the caffeine, and fermentation, if you have the right microbes, can also decrease some of the cholesterol-raising compounds found in coffee bean. Now, all coffee beans are roasted to bring out the flavor and the aroma that everybody loves. There are 4 types of roast. Number 1 is light roast. It's the least roasted bean, so it retains most of its original nutrients and acidity. Number 2 is medium roast. It's heated just to get the first crack of the bean, and it is less acidic. Number 3 is medium dark roast, which gets a second crack to the coffee bean. This then releases some of its oils from the seed. And for our general purposes, medium roast and medium dark roast are pretty much the same when it comes to nutrient content. However, number 4, dark roast. It spends a longer time in heat, thus most of the oil is released. It has the least amount of polyphenols retained in the bean. You may have heard that coffee can grow mold. Newsflash, every plant and every animal can grow mold. Mold surrounds all of us. It's on our body, it's in the environment, and that's why if you leave your food out too long, it'll grow mold. Now mold, it's in the air. So the key is not to get too much of it. Low doses of some molds are actually harmless, but certain molds, they produce toxins that we call mycotoxins. They can be harmful, and some are associated with cancer. There is mold on plants. Some plants have more mold than others. That's why grapes have that white film. That's mold. But sometimes the grapes get a green-grayish clusters, and those are a different kind of mold. It may be aspergillosis. And certain aspergillus strains, they can make mycotoxins. The reason why coffee has mold is because number 1, it's a plant. Number 2, it's air dried. And number 3, remember that wet fermentation process? That forms mold. But it appears that it's pretty small amount when you roast it and brew it. It actually reduces 99% of those mycotoxins. However, even though your coffee may have very little mold, your coffee maker may be full of stuff in it that you don't like. Think about it. Your coffee maker is moist and wet. If you leave your coffee grits around, it's organic material that already has spores, right? So if you don't clean it up right away, it actually can grow bacteria and mold. In fact, coffee makers are amongst the top 5 dirtiest things in people's home. And it's potentially worse in your bathroom and your light switches. So it's important to remove your coffee grits and clean your filter after you make your coffee. Now, another toxin that people are worried about is acrylamide. It's actually a neurotoxin and most likely a carcinogen. Every time you crisp and crunch potatoes or starches, when you cook it on high heat, baking, conventional oven or deep frying, you make that crunchy, crispy, brown thing, that crust, that is acrylamide. The EPA permits 140 micrograms of acrylamide a day. And when you roast the bean, it has both asparagine as well as sugar, sucrose. Remember, it's from a cherry seed. When you do that, it actually does form acrylamide, but it's so little that it's probably insignificant compared to all the other foods you're eating, including your French fries and your crunchy bread or your pizza crust, right? All those things are brown. That's acrylamide. And a serving of coffee can have less than 1 microgram of acrylamide to up to 27 micrograms of acrylamide. But when you eat those crusty things like potatoes or bread or, whatever dessert, apple pie, you can get over 49 micrograms of acrylamide per serving of food, right? So my kids, they love it when the potato is browned and crunchy. And I try not to do that so they don't like how I cook the potato. Your potatoes should be at most yellow, not brown or black colored. So the method that you use to cook your food is really important, right? Steaming, pressure cooking, you're unlikely to form acrylamide unless you get rid of all the water. However, you deep fry it, you put it in the oven, you're going to form more acrylamide. Even butter flavored popcorn can give you 29 micrograms of acrylamide per serving. Light to medium roasts retain more chlorogenic acids, the beneficial compounds, than dark roasted coffee. However, half of Americans, they prefer dark roasted. And maybe that's why they're not getting the longevity benefits of coffee.
Hi, friends. I am so thrilled that you want to take charge of your health and take charge of your food. Now, I know nutrition can be complex, but it doesn't have to be. And I'm here to support you in this lifelong journey. So if you point your camera app to this QR code, it'll take you to a link for a free handout that I created just for you. And if you like it, if you want to see other handouts, please go to the link in my show notes and then you can leave me your feedback on what I could do to help you in your journey. Okay, back to the video now.
Now, the brewing temperature and method also influences how much antioxidant you have in your cup of coffee. So hot methods like drip and espresso extract antioxidants quickly, while cold brews really can match it if you steep it long enough, right? 12 to 24 hours. I see so many people turn their morning cup of coffee into a liquid dessert though, with milk, with sugar, with cream. So first of all, I had mentioned before, if you add any dairy, even butter, you are adding casein protein, which is a problem because it acts as sticky tape and it binds to longevity molecules like chlorogenic acid. So it interacts with the polyphenols. So then what can you put in your cup of coffee so it's not bitter? Well, some people may put coconut or MCT oil. You can do that, but there's no casein, but you just added saturated fat, which can raise your ApoB levels, which increases your risk of heart disease. So heart disease is still the number one reason why people don't make it. So I personally think a different way to make your coffee more palatable is really important. You can try plant-based milks that are low in saturated fat, like soy milk, which also has some protein and fiber that doesn't inhibit the absorption of the antioxidants in your coffee. Now, I would avoid chemicalized creamers and thickeners and sweeteners and artificial flavors. That pretty much all sounds like chemistry to me. And does that really sound like longevity to you? And when you drink coffee the first thing in the morning, you feel really perky. But after a while, you'll notice that you hit a crash in the early afternoon and you need a second cup. Well, the rate at which you crash is dependent upon whether you're a fast caffeine metabolizer or a slow caffeine metabolizer, which is partially genetic. So people who are a slow caffeine metabolizer, they have an enzyme in their liver called CYP1A2, and it's responsible for metabolizing about 95% of your caffeine. So C1P1A2 gene, they have different variants. Some work better than others. Some people have a version that this enzyme will work faster, while other people have a slower version. So caffeine is cleared from the bloodstream quickly in people who are fast metabolizers, usually between 2 to 4 hours. And these people feel alert after they drink coffee, but it wears off really quickly, so they need a second cup. Slow caffeine metabolizers have a less active CYP1A2 enzyme. It's often a 1F variant. So caffeine lingers in the bloodstream for up to 10 hours or more. And they're more likely to feel jittery, anxious, have trouble sleeping with even a small cup of coffee. That would be me. Several studies have suggested that slow metabolizers may be at an increased risk of high blood pressure or heart attacks when they drink coffee, caffeinated coffee, because the caffeine stimulates their nervous system, which stimulates their heart. And because it sticks around too too long, it maintains a high level of stress in the cardiovascular system. And like everything else in life, it's really how quickly or slowly you metabolize or get rid of stuff that determines, if it's good or bad. So smoking, it actually increases CYP1A2 activity. So you clear caffeine faster. Now, I don't recommend that slow metabolizers take on smoking. Then you get other problems, right? Certain medications like oral contraceptives, or if you're pregnant, that will affect your caffeine metabolism and actually slows it down so more caffeine can affect the baby. And if you have other liver challenges, let's say hepatitis or other inflammation from viruses or from medications, or just simply growing older, that will also influence how you metabolize caffeine. So if you want to drink coffee or really any other caffeinated beverage and you don't want to crash, then it's really important that you wait about 60 to 90 minutes until after you get up out of bed. This allows your body to wake up, and when you wake up, you produce a surge of cortisol, which is a natural stimulant that perks you up. That makes you more alert and gets you ready for the day. This usually peaks within 30 to 60 minutes after you wake up. Now, if you consume caffeine during that cortisol spike, your body may rely less on its natural wake-up signal, potentially leading to a caffeine dependence or a blunted cortisol response over time. And the second point is when you first wake up, your body is still trying to naturally clear adenosine. Adenosine is a molecule that your body makes. During the day, you actually build up higher adenosine level to get you sleepy. And at its peak, you're super sleepy because it's a neuromodulator, meaning it helps regulate brain activity. So in the morning, just after you wake up, your adenosine levels are lower because your brain is actively trying to clear it during sleep time so that you will wake up. This happens during deep, slow wave sleep. So naturally, after you wake up, adenosine levels will start to rise throughout the day. And when it goes up, it's trying to bind to receptors to slow your brain down. And this happens in areas like the basal forebrain. And this is why you feel drowsy. Now, this is a part of your sleep and wake homeostasis, meaning it's very normal. So when adenosine binds to its receptors, your neurons slow down and they start to feel tired. Caffeine, whether you're drinking coffee, tea, eating chocolate, or some medications, they all look similar chemically to adenosine. And because of this, it competitively binds to adenosine receptors, especially the A1 and A2A receptors, without activating them. So think of caffeine as a molecular imposter that blocks adenosine from attaching to its receptors. And as a result, you feel more awake and alert because the brain doesn't get the slowed down signal from adenosine. However, your body is trying to restore its normal balance, and it compensates. You know how it does that? It makes more adenosine receptors. So you become more sensitive to adenosine, since if you have more receptors, then eventually some adenosines will bind to it. However, if you stop caffeine suddenly, then adenosine can flood those extra receptors, leading to withdrawal symptoms like fatigue, brain fog, irritability, and headaches. And over time, this makes you tolerant to caffeine, requiring higher and higher doses or more and more coffee to get the same effect. Now, does this sound like a longevity thing to do? No, it's not. Right? So this is why timing of your coffee matters. Since adenosine builds up all day long and only clears during sleep, repeat caffeine doses or drinking another cup in the late afternoon or evening can actually delay melatonin release. It can disrupt sleep, and it can lead to a vicious cycle of poor sleep quality, leading to more adenosine and you chasing more coffee for caffeine. However, if you're a slow metabolizer of caffeine, then drinking afternoon, that's going to cause similar problem with insomnia, poor sleep, which then causes a weakened immunity, right? For everybody. There are all kinds of hormonal imbalances when you don't sleep. This also leads to insulin resistance, higher blood sugar levels, higher insulin levels to take care of the same amount of carbohydrates, and metabolic diseases like diabetes. Now, caffeine, remember, is not only found in coffee, but it's also in tea, yerba mate, chocolate, and in some medications. And caffeine, no matter the source, will all competitively bind to adenosine receptors, especially the A1 and A2 receptors. And children are very sensitive to caffeine. So once I went to work and my toddler, he got my dark chocolate stash, which I didn't really think was a big deal because there wasn't a lot of dark chocolate left. But he ate all of it, whatever was in the box. And that night, the guy, he didn't sleep. He was up until 3 o'clock in the morning, literally bouncing around the bed from wall to wall. And all while I was trying to demonstrate how to sleep. So think of caffeine as a molecular imposter. And really, what you don't want is for its action to happen too quickly early in the morning. Allow your body to feel more awake and alert before you drink that coffee. So this way, your natural cycles, your natural hormones and neurotransmitters doesn't get all messed up. Now, some people think coffee is your drug of choice, right? And it absolutely is because, again, caffeine, it also indirectly increases dopamine signaling. Dopamine is the stuff that everybody wants to improve their mood, and it reinforces the habit of coffee drinking. In fact, it can be so stimulating that you don't even have to drink the coffee. I have a friend who just feels so happy just making her coffee. And this is similar to Pavlov's dogs, right? They ring the bell and the dog salivates. So my friend, when she starts making a coffee, she has like a Pavlov response to make your morning coffee. There are several ways to drink coffee in the morning. Most people like fresh beans. To maintain its freshness, ground it at most 2 weeks before you want to use it, right? And if you grind it to a fine powder, it will be more bitter. If it's more coarse, it will be more flat. Now, it's recommended that you put 1 to 2 tablespoons of ground coffee for every 6 ounces of water. And of course, you can adjust that to taste. Now, the brewing method can take 12 hours like a cold brew or 20 seconds like an espresso. So hot water will extract more flavor from the bean than cold water. And a typical coffee machine takes about 5 minutes to make a cup of coffee versus a manual French press or my coffee maker that can take 2 to 4 minutes. If you want more flavor, use hotter water or brew it longer. Now, of course, be careful not to burn yourself. Now, if you're a routine coffee drinker, most likely you're drinking it on an empty stomach or with a light breakfast, which is actually better than people who drink coffee with their meals or after their meals, especially those who are iron deficient. If you're iron deficient, your morning cup of coffee can actually reduce the absorption of iron from your food by 39%. And this effect can last even an hour after eating. And probably because it takes at least 2 hours to clear your food from your stomach. Now, it's best to drink coffee an hour before eating to prevent this interaction. However, if you're not iron deficient or even an iron overload, then it may be beneficial to drink it with your meals. I don't know if you know this, but high iron levels actually increase the risk of diabetes and gout. And there's also a significant portion of the population who have very high iron levels, especially people who eat a lot of iron-rich foods, such as red meat. A certain segment of the population also are genetically predisposed to have excessive iron absorption. They have a condition called hemochromatosis. Oftentimes it's undiagnosed, and untreated hemochromatosis can lead to chronic liver disease due to iron overload. So iron is not one of those supplements to take without supervision. But if you did want to decrease the amount of iron in your food, then coffee paired with your meals would be one way to do it. Now, most people, they're not drinking coffee to control their iron levels. They're drinking coffee because they want to increase their caffeine intake. And I mentioned before, caffeine stimulates your body. It is a legal stimulant. It regulates your nervous system, which controls your heartbeats. So it can increase your arterial stiffness, that means your blood vessel stiffness, within 1 to 2 hours after drinking your coffee. This means it could potentially cause you to have high blood pressure, especially in people who smoke. Now, if you have glaucoma or an increase in eye pressure, it can actually increase your eye pressure too. And it also can increase the pressure in your lungs. But in your lungs, it actually can open your airways. However, in your gut, it can actually give you reflux or stimulate your bowels to go poop and your bladder to go pee. And remember how before I said coffee stimulates your heart? Well, some people have a condition called atrial fibrillation. That is actually the most common heart arrhythmia. And the heart beats too fast, too irregularly, and too often. So it can't effectively pump blood. There's actually one chamber of the heart called the atrium. So this leads to stagnant blood in the atrium because it's kind of fibrillating. And when you have stagnant blood, you have blood clots, which can increase the risk of strokes. And most Americans are at increased risk of atrial fibrillation because they don't realize that they have high blood pressure, or they ignore their high blood pressure and they don't try to get it normal. Or they actually don't take their blood pressure medications because it's not natural. This is all natural, but it's a stimulant to the heart. And if you have a heart arrhythmia, that is the most effective way not to survive. Now, I'm all for natural products, but you have to know which natural products are not so good for you and avoid them. Now, most people who have high blood pressure, They are trying to cut out their added salt, but they still eat processed foods and animal products, especially prepared animal products, which actually has more salt than what they're adding. The other issue is that, when we're addressing high blood pressure, just walking 30 minutes a day can significantly reduce your high blood pressure on top of cutting down the sodium. There are also lots of foods to add that are rich in nitric oxide, such as leafy greens like arugula or beetroot juice that can address and improve people's blood pressure. The problem is that there are so many different things that people have to do to get their blood pressure down that they think that 80% of the effort is enough. However, the other 20% is what sabotages the 80% of effort. And blood pressure is one of those metrics where if I had high blood pressure, I would really try through my diet and lifestyle and exercise to get off of it and not depend on medications, because most likely medications, your body will just get tolerant to them and you're just going to need more. But I would use it as a temporary buffer until I can get my lifestyle correct. And unfortunately, people with very high blood pressure, above 160 over 100 millimeters of mercury, drinking 2 cups of coffee a day was associated with twice the risk of dying from a heart attack or stroke or another cardiovascular related event compared to not drinking any coffee. And unfortunately, so many people don't check their blood pressure because you never know when your blood pressure is elevated and stays elevated unless you're checking it. And this is why you can't be too obsessed with knowing your own blood pressure numbers, because not knowing just puts people at risk. In the hospital, we check people every 4 hours, and those are the people who are stable. If you're unstable, we actually check it even more often than that. And it's good to be able to check it consecutively to know that your blood pressure is in range, because high blood pressure has no symptoms until it's too late. Now, I had mentioned the word fiber earlier. Did you know that coffee actually contains a small amount of fiber? That's because it has compounds like galacto-oligosaccharides and arabinose galactans, which act as fermentable substrates for your gut microbes. And this fiber is like a prebiotic found in onions or bananas. It feeds your beneficial friends, your beneficial gut microbes, to increase their colony counts and decrease pathogenic bad guys. When you drink these coffees and you give them these fibers, they actually produce short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, acetate, and propionate. And these short-chain fatty acids, they strengthen the intestinal barrier, they reduce gut inflammation, and they support your colon health to help regulate your appetite and metabolism and how often you go poop. And if you drink coffee, it can help to suppress pathogenic bacteria like E. coli and Clostridium difficile to help maintain a healthier milieu in your gut. So your morning coffee is really a prebiotic, anti-inflammatory, gut microbe-promoting cup of joe. It enhances beneficial bacteria. It makes you beneficial short-chain fatty acids. It can improve your insulin sensitivity, lower inflammation, and contribute to better metabolic health if you drink it right and you drink the appropriate amount. But coffee isn't the only drink that can help improve your health and give you longevity. And if you want to learn more about that, watch the next video.